Here's what every photographer should know starting out before you buy a single filter for your lens. Because not all of them are going to be worth it, and there are different situations where you'll need different filters. Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Joe Granito, and I have been an automotive photographer for over 7 years. And in today's video, I'm going to be walking you through the top 3 filters that you should be considering when you're starting off in photography, and what each filter means, and what it's used for, and maybe what it's not used for. It can be very overwhelming in the photography world when it comes to gear. If you just bought a camera body and you just bought a lens, you probably invested thousands of dollars into it, and now you're hearing that you need to use filters. But do you really need to use filters all the time? And when should you be getting filters? What use cases should you have filters for? All these questions will be answered in this video today. The first filter that I'm going to be talking about is the UV filter. Now, this filter is not a special effects filter. It is an ultraviolet filter, which means just kind of like protects the amount of ultraviolet light that's coming into your lens, but it's primarily used for protecting your lens. Now, if you've invested thousands of dollars into a lens like this, if you were to drop it, you're likely going to damage the front glass element on your lens, which is a very expensive repair or a complete replacement. And what a UV filter does is it adds an extra layer of protection between whatever it is that you're shooting and your lens. Now, in the past, it used to be beneficial for film cameras, but with digital cameras, that's its primary use. So if you're starting off, this is actually the first filter you should get just for the sole reason of protecting your investment. And these are pretty cheap. They're always under $100. So you can get one from like maybe 20 bucks to 60 bucks. You know, it doesn't matter what brand, just make sure that you have something on the front of your lens to protect it. Now, as I move through these filters, I do want to give a disclosure that I use filters from a company called PolarPro. I am a brand ambassador for them, but this is not a sponsored video. They're not asking me to talk about their filters. It's just the filters I have access to. So all of my examples are going to be from this brand specifically, but there are obviously other brands out there that you can purchase. And every filter that I talk about or anything that I recommend, I will have in the description down below for you, so you can go and shop around as you like. Also, if you're getting value out of this information so far, please be sure to leave a like down below as it helps this channel. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, because I do have more videos like this revolving around gear. And if that's the kind of content that you're looking at, I have some of that for you already. So as you're getting more used to your camera and you're going out on more shoots, my first recommendation is going for what's called a CPL filter. Now, a CPL filter is a polarizer filter. It stands for circular polarizer. That's what CP is. And this filter is very useful in any use case scenario. So if you shoot cars like I do, you have reflective surfaces, and you're gonna see a lot of glare from the sunlight or artificial light that you have on the car. And what this filter does is it cuts out those reflections. It also helps deepen the color of whatever it is that you're shooting, and it also helps enhance your skies. Because as you spin it, it's going to change how the light is coming in and hitting your sensor. So this is a really good filter to use. If you shoot anything outdoors, I recommend getting this one specifically. Now, a filter like this, you wouldn't need to use in an indoor environment like I'm in right now. So if you shoot portraits indoors in a studio, you don't really need a circular polarizer filter, but there is a little bit of a benefit to having it, as I'll show you here, because I have a polarizer filter on this camera right now. So as I spin it, pay attention to my hair, and you can see how there's like this light glare from my key light, but as I keep spinning it and I get it back to what it was, my hair is going to appear slightly darker and then go slightly lighter. So if I'm gonna turn it here, it's a little bit darker. So it does control how the light reflects off of an object. It does help with some scenarios indoors, but you don't always need to have it. If you're outdoors though, you should totally pick up a polarizer filter. The third filter type I'm going to be talking about is the ND filter, or in this case, a variable ND filter. ND stands for neutral density. And basically all that means is that it's controlling the amount of light that's coming into your lens. Think of it like sunglasses before your camera. Now, ND filters come in 2 types. You have what I like to call static ND filters, which is like it has one ND level. This is an ND8 filter. And then you also have a variable ND filter, where this is a 2 to 5 ND filter, and this is a 6 to 9 ND filter. The ones that are just one specific ND are usually really good as far as like quality is concerned, because you won't have the risk of having artifacts in your photos. So when you spin these filters that are ND filters, like the variable ones, you can have one part of your image be darker than the other part of your image. Because of the moving component of this, sometimes it can cause giant black X's in the middle of your image, or you can have parts of your image that are underexposed or overexposed. Those kinds of issues usually go away when you buy a higher quality filter, but if you're going on the cheaper side, you're gonna probably run into that more often. And then to avoid that, you can get ones that are just one specific ND level, and then you can just buy multiple of them if you really wanted to. And these are very specific use cases that you want to use it for. In still photography, it's when you want to caption motion. So if you are shooting a picture of a waterfall, the ocean side, or maybe a river, and you want to get the blurry effect of the water moving, you have to decrease your shutter speed significantly. And when you do that, it causes your image to be overexposed. And that is why you would use an ND filter, because you can cut down your shutter speed significantly and use the ND filter to control the amount of light coming into your image, so that way it's not overexposed and you still get the very specific motion that you're trying to capture. So if you're shooting at 1 second, 3 second, minutes worth of exposure time, an ND filter is gonna be used for that. In my use case, when I'm shooting motorsports, I am going to be using an ND filter to get more motion blur. So as I'm panning and shooting at a car, I want to have more motion blur. And so that means I'm gonna change my shutter speed to be lower, but that's going to overexpose my image. So I am either gonna crank up my aperture, or I'm going to use a filter like this, so that way I don't have to rely on my aperture. I can control it with this. The next type of filter I want to talk about is actually a special effects filter. So there are multiple special effects filters out there that you can get that you've probably seen on Instagram. One like the starlight filter, which makes all points of light look like stars. And then you also have what's called a black mist filter, which is what I have right here. And it's actually something I'm using right now on my lens. Now, a black mist filter specifically is pretty much like smudging your lens and then taking a picture. It's gonna make things look a little bit more fuzzy, look more soft as far as the highlights are concerned. And these types of filters are very useful when you're shooting stuff like this, like portrait shots. It softens your skin tones, it softens your highlights, and it gives you this sort of cinematic look to it. And there are different strengths of black mist. For instance, I am using what's called a 1/4 strength. This is a 1/2 strength, and then there's even a 1/8 strength. So each one of them has its own purpose, but the filter I'm using right now on my lens is called the Everyday Filter by Polar Pro and Short Stash. This filter is literally one that you could use every single day because it's both a polarizer filter and a black mist filter combined into one. And to just give you a live example of what that looks like, I'm going to turn on my flashlight and I'm going to take off the filter. So this is with the filter off. You can kind of see right out of the gate how everything looks on my image. It looks awful, but I'm gonna hold up this light. And this is a large source of highlight, and you can see how harsh it looks. You can see like the individual lines of the light. Okay, so I'm gonna just put the filter back on, and now you can see it has this kind of like cinematic glow to it. So this bloom effect, the lines are still there, but they're a little bit softened. It does soften my skin a little bit, but this is what a black mist filter does. It targets the highlights and it softens them for you. And now there are different strengths, like I mentioned. This is a 1/4 strength, this is a 1/2 strength. So this is just the regular mist filter, but I'm gonna take off this filter that I have on right now, and I'm gonna show the difference with a side-by-side of me holding up my flashlight. Black mist filters are gonna be used very specifically for this more cinematic look or this type of look you want to have on Instagram. It's not a filter that you would want to use all the time unless you want to have that look. Now, I know I've thrown a lot at you as far as like what types of filters there are out there, but I do want to talk about quality of filters, because what a lot of people don't think about is when you buy a lower quality filter starting out, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also not something that you want to rely on when you're doing professional work. And just to give you an example, I have two filters. These are the original ones I purchased for my camera that I'm using right now, which is the Sony a7 IV and my Sigma 24-70 lens. Check out another video I have where I talk about the lens itself. And these filters are what I started off with. This CPL filter was 60 bucks. This variable ND filter, I think, was around $80. And there's nothing wrong with using cheaper filters. There's just a few things you have to take into consideration. One, This ND filter is a variable ND filter, and it goes from 2 to 400, which is absurd thinking back now. I don't think I'm ever gonna use a 400 ND filter, but it's there. So like as you spin this, you're gonna run into more risk of having that giant black X artifact in the middle of your image, or you're gonna have a higher chance of part of your image being underexposed and the other part being overexposed. Because when you have filters like this, they're not necessarily the highest quality filter. Now, this is made by K&F, and K&F does make high quality filters. They just simply make cheaper alternatives that people can use, so they have a lower barrier to entry when it comes to their products. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm not bagging on them. I like their products. It's just a thing that you have to take in consideration. The other filter that I used from them was a CPL filter. Now, I've never had problems with their filters in the past. I've used them on my previous camera. But this one, that was $60, when I was using it, it's very hard to turn, and it also would get stuck on my lens. So like the threads would get stuck. I would have to use a rubber band, or I would have to use a second filter to get it off the lens itself. And that can cause issues in the long run. Like you can damage the threads on your lens, and you don't want to do that. The other thing is that the element on the inside spins freely. Like it's not seated, and it just spins on its own. And so if I'm trying to spin it normally, it's like you gotta really crank it. And then this just kind of fell apart, so now it just spun freely. And so this filter is pretty much useless. Not only you're gonna run into situations with build quality, you'll also run into situations with the color accuracy. So some filters, you will see a hue that goes over the top of the image, like a magenta or a green hue. And this is where the color accuracy becomes a concern. You can correct for that in your editing process if you want to. But again, the whole idea behind the filter is to give you the highest quality image right out of the camera. So you don't want to create that extra step for yourself, and you don't want to ruin the quality of your images, especially if you're doing professional work. And that's why like I've loaded up on professional filters. Now again, this is not sponsored. I get these filters from Polar Pro. So thank you for sending these out, by the way, Polar Pro. And I'm also about to get a new one, and that's launching June 4th. So if you're watching this before June 4th, I can't talk about it yet, but if it's post June 4th, I'll hopefully have a video up here so you guys can go watch it, because I think it's a pretty cool filter that's coming out. And these filters are very expensive. I think on average, these are $130 to $330 each. And so if you think about it, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 if you want to count the threaded one. And these Maglock filters are very expensive. They're gonna cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But the beauty of it is that you can buy one filter and you get the best color accuracy, you get the best build quality. This is metal. Like I can literally throw this across the room and it would be just fine. It won't break. Well, when it's in its case. But like, you get better build quality when you buy higher quality filters. And there are multiple brands out there that you can look at. Hoya has really good filters. And like I mentioned a little bit ago, K&F also has high quality filters. They do have better lineups that you can look into. And there are other amazing brands out there that make quality filters. It's just, if you are spending less than $100 on a filter, but you're putting on a multi-$1,000 camera setup, you're gonna get what you paid for. And so I recommend, if you are looking to do more professional work, save up the money to invest in a high quality filter or a set of filters in order to make your work stand out more and make it look more professional. Because that's going to make the difference between you getting that paid gig and not getting a paid gig. I know it sounds silly, but like as you're doing this more, you want to invest in higher quality stuff like this. And not only that, if you are starting out, you want to make sure that when you're buying a filter that you have a specific use case for it. So for instance, this filter right here, this is a variable ND filter that is 2 to 5 stops, but it's also a polarizer filter and a black mist filter. So let's put it this way. You have 3 filters right here built into one. You can actually argue that it's 6, because with it being a variable ND filter, you have a 2-stop, 3, 4, and 5-stop, and then you have a black mist, polarizer, and it's an ND filter. Yeah, it's been a long day. So you have multiple filters built into one. And in my personal opinion, this being, I think it's like $300, right? I might be wrong. If I were to spend $300 on just one filter, but this covers every single use case that I have, I'm gonna buy this one filter and it's never gonna leave my camera, okay? If you may be thinking, oh, well, I don't need a black mist. Okay, here's one that is a variable ND filter that is a 6-9, that is only an ND filter and a polarizer filter. Now they have different variations of this. You can flip-flop them. So this can have black mist, this cannot have black mist. Like you can customize it. Like you can get different variations of it. But the bottom line is that you need to buy a filter based on your specific need, just like you would buy a camera and or a lens based on your specific needs. 99% of you watching this will probably end up buying a circular polarizer filter like this. And that's it. And that is completely fine. You do not need to go out and buy a black mist filter. You do not need to go out and buy a variable ND filter unless you are a videographer, in which case this is gonna be absolutely mandatory if you're shooting in bright conditions. But 99% of you will be shooting with the polarizer filter. And so if I had to start all over, because I started with the UV filter, I probably would have just saved up to get a polarizer filter right out of the gate. Because for automotive work, it was absolutely necessary, but I didn't know that going into it. So if you're doing automotive work, if you're doing landscape work, if you're doing architecture or anything that's outdoors, I would highly recommend starting off with a polarizer filter. Cry once, that's it. Like just buy one nice filter or buy a cheap one, like a sub $100 filter, and then upgrade to a nicer filter a year or two down the line, whichever makes the most sense for you. But either way, get a polarizer filter at the very least, because that is the most useful, most versatile filter that you can get for any use case. So just to recap, not all filters that you look at are going to be worth your time, your effort, your money. You may just buy filters and they just sit on your desk forever and just collect dust. Or maybe you buy the wrong filter, like my 200 to 400 ND filter that is also very tough to spend, by the way. Like I was never gonna use an ND 400 level. Like who uses that? And I do have other videos about gear specifically for people who are just starting out in photography. I'm gonna have a playlist pop up on the screen for you to go watch. This is a playlist I'm currently building right now. So what I have there right now, I highly recommend you watching it because I think it's very important for me to share with you what I have learned from my photography experience. And I've wasted money on gear that I never needed, but I've also made great purchases that I highlight in these videos. So I wanna make sure that you have the right information in front of you to help get you started. If you've already purchased your camera and you're already doing stuff, you can still learn stuff from this. If you haven't purchased your camera or haven't purchased a lens or a filter, hopefully this information has been helpful for you. And if it has been, please let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this particular topic. And if you haven't subscribed, now's your chance, because I am going to be making more videos about this because I want to bring this information to light for you. So that's all I got for you right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.